Jeremy Taylor, and welcome to Wednesday Night Undressed, the podcast that reaches into the wobbly places other podcasts daren't venture. Join our panel for a thrilling threnody of rumbustical debate, where the answers are always clear, simple and straightforward, insofar as they can be determined and demonstrated to be without any epistemological problems. Let me introduce our regular panel and guests. Dame Kathleen Taylor.
Hello.
Count Ivo Ivanov, Dr. Orlando, Professor Jane Carter,
Heidi-ho.
and guesting with us on this episode, Mr. Brennan Conroy.
Ayo.
So, let's have a think. We've been talking about all sorts of different subjects that we'd like to talk about, you know, with what's going on in politics today. And speaking of Stormy Daniels, Dr. Orlando.
Introductory question. Have you guys, any of you guys seen the porn star makeover meme on Facebook?
No.
Okay, after the show, just remind me to pull this up. Like, if you look at porn stars without the makeup, they look like zombies. And then you...
All of them?
All the ones that are in this little thing. Anyway, the
That'd be interesting to film them
especially
without
Ron
their
Jeremy.
makeup, because
I've
that would
actually
be a cool...
ridden on a plane with Ron Jeremy. He's a scary dude.
The hedgehog.
But I'm curious about beauty trends, fashion trends. Like, we kind of think about things like foot binding as barbaric and stupid right now. And that got me to wondering, like, what we might consider, like, 100 years from now to be, like, really stupid cosmetic or fashion ideas that we're doing now.
You think we've finished with foot binding? Have you seen pointy-toed shoes?
Actually, I have, yes. And I know about all of the different, like, little foot problems that they cause for women.
Yeah.
Which is weird, though.
Stilettos and pointy toes? I mean, you'll only be walking for the next 6 months.
Well, yeah. So the question is, though, do we have anything that specifically that guys do that are, like, really, really dumb fashion or cosmetic trends?
Men buns.
No, man buns are perfect.
No, they're not.
Man buns are the source of all energy in the universe.
They're hideous.
No.
They might be hideous, but they don't hurt anybody.
They
Oh.
Really? How?
do. Yeah, yes. They cause migraines. They cause premature balding.
And
Yeah.
that's to the people that are actually forced to observe. not
Jeez.
to the ones that are wearing the man bun.
Well, women who wear buns don't go prematurely bald. How have they decided that men do?
Maybe different type of follicles.
I think it's because of the way that man buns have to be, that you use hair from all different sides of your head, and it also, like, just the way that you have to wear it, like, kind of like that.
And just
like
I think
that.
you're in over your head here, Brennan. As
Yeah.
a person who puts their hair up regularly,
Yeah,
you
that's
put it
how
up from all
everybody
different
puts it up.
angles, and it can hang in
This
many
is
different ways. And
This is actually a really interesting notion, because, like, I've seen report after report about man buns causing headaches and baldness, and
headaches,
I've never
I can totally agree with,
questioned it.
especially if you have thicker hair. It
Right.
does give you headaches after a while. But as far as premature balding, it might already be genetically predisposed.
Sure.
Men
Right.
lose their hair faster than
I
women
kind
do.
of tend to doubt that it causes
And also,
balding.
you don't know whether there's anything living there. In the bun. I know a lady who used to put her hair up, and we were absolutely certain there was a cat living up there.
small forest animals.
Yes.
Oh, you've only to
Anybody
look at the
got
president.
anything else besides the man bun?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I will-
Yes, I do. But
Hold on.
after Brennan.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
I have two
No, but-
that. Yeah. There are two that seem like I would go away, but they seem to have not after a long time. Septum piercings and ear gauging.
Really, but those are actually older.
That's
They
why
are.
I'm surprised. Like, I see those and, like, I do not get those at all, and it seems like
Especially
those
the gauges.
I just look at those and go, why are you doing that to yourself? Because it seems
That is freaking me
Horrible.
out. Every time there's a guy at the quick shop that has those things that enlarges his ear lobe, and it just, like, it's body modification, and there's no reason for it. It's not appealing. I don't think any girl looks at this and gets aroused.
yeah.
So
And I've also heard that they smell. Like,
Really?
because people don't clean them properly, and it starts to smell like dirt funk. Yeah.
you know what we're talking about, right? Have you seen the earlobes that have the thing inside that makes the guy's earlobes giant.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a bit like the ladies in Africa who make their lips go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I remember my father used to say to me always, you need to get a haircut.
He did not wear ear enlargements.
Largely because he was just taking the piss, right? I mean, he whatever. But it seems to me that one has to be careful not to become one's father. And so one of the things that my boys did, which really drove me crazy, was that they would wear their trousers halfway down their bum. and my wife has just heaved a sigh of
Did this really
the
happen
sagging
with your
pants?
guys?
the sagging
Well,
pants.
they sagged a little, but Jeremy, he would have thrown them out.
Right.
So they
but-
didn't sag much.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but so what I'm getting at though is you will see rapper type people who have their
He means black folks. That's okay.
They crawl under the table now.
yeah, and they try and walk and they hold their trousers up, and it seems to me that surely they must regret that fashion trend, and you can see in magazines. I like old magazines, and you can see, as you have suggested in your positation, that
Positation.
the Victorians dressed in a certain way, the George in King George's time they dressed in a certain way. What did they wear in the 20s? What did they wear in the 30s and 40s and so on?
Oh,
Right.
cod pieces. Have they come back
yeah.
yet?
And
That would be an excellent idea.
And see,
and it is
They have come
fascinating.
back,
It is
not in the
fascinating
way
to see
you
these
guys want them
clothes.
to,
Yeah.
though.
When you start to get into the late 30s, if you happen to have someone who has had the money to have colour film, there were people who had Eastman Dakota. There was colour film,
Right.
and so watching, particularly women, I think, wearing the clothes they wore, I find fascinating.
The high heels and stuff.
And just the general clothes,
Victorian.
because
The Victorian, the corsets.
yeah,
Those are that.
Yeah.
I
Gotta love
wonder
the
what
bustle.
this did to your internal organs.
Actually, it's really fascinating. I'm
Yeah.
going to send you a link so you can check this out.
Really?
Is it the kind of link that I would like?
Yes.
Righteous.
Oh, I shouldn't probably look at it. But you know,
There are some women who are still doing it. Have you seen them?
Dita
Yeah.
Von Teese.
That is
Yes.
so
Bobby.
messed up.
I mean,
Bill-
that's the name I've heard. I
Her
don't
goal
know
is to
anything
look like
about
Jessica
her,
Rabbit.
and her and Madeline Albright. Usually. I was thinking that the sagging pants actually are a dangerous fashion trend, because they can terminally impede your movement as you're trying to run away from the ever-increasing number of trigger-happy murderers cops in the United States. So you really, really need to wear a comfortable clothing if you're in any area where there's like St. Louis cops, for example.
Not just St. Louis, man.
Then you know what I was thinking though? That worries me, and also what I think is ridiculous and I don't get is the grills. The fake
Oh my
gold
God.
grills.
I
don't
remember
get
when
it.
those
I
were a
don't
thing.
get it.
So
a grill?
They're still
grill
a thing.
is
Oh,
basically
okay, right. Yeah,
basically
on
where
teeth.
you get either an inlay of a particular design on your teeth, or an actual like external, or not necessarily external because you're in theory supposed to be able to close your mouth, but a piece of gold shaped in some way that sits on front of your teeth. So
Kind of dumb. Is it as dumb as Botox?
See, that was mine. I was going to say Botox, but I'm not sure if they're going to think that's stupid in the future. I think it's just going to
don't
get
think
worse
it
and
is.
worse
Injecting
and worse.
botulism, poison. You're injecting poison under your skin.
Evo,
Well-
I am drinking poison right now. What are you talking about?
That is-
But you're not injecting it under your skin.
But that's the whole concept of a therapeutic dose. It's everything is poisonous in a large enough dose.
Okay, how about wearing ties?
That's
Holy
stupid.
shit. I hope that goes
I think
away.
those are. I think those
Neckties
are
are the
dumb.
dumbest
Dumb.
thing
I don't
ever.
see why it has to go away. Men should have at least one uncomfortable fashion item. Okay? Just one.
Okay, how about shaving?
So that was actually what I
Why
thought
do
of.
people scrape the hair off their bodies?
Why? Can I say something? Kissing a guy
Gently,
with the beard is very uncomfortable. Yeah.
I agree. I don't like
okay.
it either.
I've never had a problem with it.
Well, here's a question. Coming from the UK, when I inherited my stepson, he had these very weird underpants because
Is
they
he
look
Mormon?
no, they look like shorts,
Yeah.
right? And I inherited him. I was a few years into
They're
my
called
life.
boxers, dear.
Yes, quite. Never come across boxer shorts before in the wash or anywhere else.
Wow.
No. Brits all wear Y-fronts.
Tidy
All of them?
whities.
Tidy whities.
Do you know that for a fact?
Well, I don't know. I've never met or heard of anybody wearing.
Boxers are for sale in the UK.
They are
Somebody
now.
must buy them.
They are now, but it's like all these American fads that come across Halloween, for example.
Yeah.
Almost made me choke
Commando will never go out of fashion.
Boxers
No, true.
equivocate to
True.
Halloween.
there. But the mullet will.
Yes, the mullet.
No.
Oh, it will come
Never.
back.
It will never go out of fashion.
Business in the front, party in the back. That's never going away.
And
The
I
achy
think-
breaky. Mistaken?
mistaken.
Hair mistaken?
No, you will never get rid of the mullet because no one will ever beat Andre Agassi's.
Oh, that
Glorious.
was glorious, yeah, flowing, beautiful mullet.
Will tattoos ever be seen as stupid?
Oh, yeah.
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
know. I don't think
I don't
so.
I don't think so.
I mean, they're
I
ancient.
think trousers is another thing that in the late 60s and early 70s, we wore flares, and then we had
We fell over them going upstairs.
bell bottoms,
Yeah.
and then we had
What comes after bell bottoms?
loons.
Oh, God.
I don't know what a loon is.
It
Super
is
tight.
twice as
No,
wide
no,
as a
no,
bell
no.
bottom.
It's even wider than a bell bottom.
Oh,
Ooh.
jeez.
Yeah.
It's like a skirt.
And we also used
On
to
each
wear.
leg.
We used to wear. You know, like John Wayne, when he was in a cowboy film, his top had buttons across his tummy and then up either side, so it was
Right.
like a square thing.
Uh-huh.
The girls had trousers like that. They wore trousers that had. You know, it's difficult enough when you're trying to undo buttons and
That
zips
was a
and
very
things,
brief
right?
bet.
interlude.
Girls are like, screw this shit.
Yeah.
Done with this.
Yeah, but I think trousers is an interesting thing, you know, because at the end of the day, trousers are trousers. It would be very interesting
Wouldn't
to
you
talk
have to
to
say
someone.
trousers are very interesting?
I'm
Or
about
is
to
it
give you a
trousers
bit.
is?
I'm about to give you an interesting piece of information for everyone listening to this
Are or is?
with regard to trousers.
Go for it.
First of all, they're known as a pair of trousers. Yes. Levi Strauss. If you happen to be turning out an old shed or something like that, say you bought an old house, really old house, out in the middle of nowhere for some reason, and you're going through the barn and you found an old pair of Levi's, really old Levi's, don't, for God's sake, throw them away.
1984.
No, 1930s.
Yeah, don't throw those
Don't
away.
throw them away because they can be worth a shitload of money.
Oh, yeah.
Really very serious amounts of money.
People collect Levi's,
Yeah.
especially like even 50s and 60s ones still go for a lot of
Because the colour badge on the back, right, changes every now and then. And so my stepdaughter, she said to me once, what do you mean, sort of like complete contempt with regard to flares? And so I went off upstairs and found a pair of flares that I had bought once, and then I got, just for some reason, they got too small for me, and I never wore them.
For some
They were,
reason.
reason.
They were brand new, right? And I just carried them around with me for
Right.
sort of 25 years. And I said, "Here you go," and sure enough, flares. Well, that's just not right. And she had to go to the pub or something, you know, get over it.
Well,
So-
can I ask then? Because there are certain types of pants right now out there that drive me crazy, and I can't. I think they're called. Boys wear them. I think they're called joggers. Have you seen them?
I don't
They
know.
look like sweatpants, except they're cut a little bit higher, so right above the ankle bone, and they have a cuff that tightens them around the ankle, and then right above the ankle, and then it looks like they have crap in their pants.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
They look absolutely ridiculous,
And they're kinda popular,
every
aren't they?
boy is
Yeah.
wearing them.
They're
They are
popular.
hideously ugly. and it really does look like they have a load of crap in their pants.
I'm just glad the Crocs are gone. My God.
Yeah.
Crocs are not gone.
For about
What do you mean
for about a
Crocs are
couple of
gone?
years. Well, for about a couple of years, everybody was wearing Crocs.
I just got my first pair.
Well, I mean, you still see them, but it wasn't like a mass hysteria. There was the Crocs. Yeah.
Can I also add in, why are Birkenstocks popular? They're not comfortable. They're rock hard. They're expensive.
Been around forever too.
I don't get them. I don't get Birkenstocks.
Well, for the same reason, I've never understood why do the Dutch wear clogs. When you think about how much effort goes into making a clog, right, carving it and everything else, and getting it the right size so you can wear it, people's time is worth more than that, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, like, clogs are relatively expensive, and at least the ones that are made for wear versus the ones that are just decorative. Evo and I just went. Was that last year? We went to the Tulip Festival
Pella, yeah.
in Pella, Indiana, and like, there's literally like 4 stores. Or Pella, Iowa. Sorry, Neil was with us. There's like 4 stores that just have clogs lined up in the windows, and they have like clogs you can buy to wear and clogs that you buy for decoration.
Yeah. And nobody ever gets robbed. Because you can hear them.
There are only 2 things I cannot stand: people who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
I like that.
It's like the best
Brilliant.
Austin Powers line. It was a Michael Caine line. I loved it.
Yes.
Cracked me up.
Well, what about religious type? I mean, I often wonder when you see. I want to make sure I get the name. Is it Hasidic Jews?
Hasidic.
Jews?
Hasids.
And these guys wear white shirts, black waistcoats, black coats, and then have their hair done all weird. And
Well, that's-
and
yeah,
I
never
think
mind.
to myself, their kids, right, get to be 16, 15, 16, and they must be thinking to themselves, when they're upstairs in their bedroom secretly watching computer porn or games or what have you, fuck, why do I have to dress like this?
That happens with everybody who grows up with a culture that they don't see all over the place on television. They just
Yeah.
think that is just a part of growing up with anything other than the completely mainstream, all in the family type stuff.
Yeah.
That happens with every culture.
Yeah.
It's interesting that in England, where we've been dealing with Indians, Pakistanis, and Jamaicans
You're dealing
a
with
lot. Yeah, I mean that's what you have to do when you have an empire. They come and stay,
Oh Lord!
and they're very welcome too.
Well, to
I have to say, but. What's interesting is that the ladies wear all sorts of, saris, and some of them are really lovely, the colours and the silks and all that sort of thing. But their granddaughters, who go to the local high school, right, don't want to be seen dead in them. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, as we move on and the grandparents pass away, and then the parents pass away, and those 16-year-olds are now in their 50s and 60s, the traditional dress goes out the window. I mean,
Don't
look
you
at
think it
Evo.
comes
You
back?
don't see him wearing the traditional Bulgarian
Garb.
Dude, would you do that?
dancing
Garb. If
dancing.
If you were in
Garb spelled backwards is brag.
yeah.
Hold on, seriously.
just really
If you were in
realized.
Bulgaria during I don't remember what the name of the big celebration in the summer is that we went and
Oh, yeah.
where we
It's
were
like
like
a-
in front of the National
theater?
Art Center,
Yeah.
and they were dressed in the traditional
Oh, the
Russian.
24th of May is the
24th of
National
May, yes.
Day of the Cyrillic alphabet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
and
would you dress
literature.
up?
I've never done it. I don't have traditional, but I would.
Yeah.
Why not?
No, it's this fantastic thing.
Yeah?
Like, yeah, you'd have to. I'll pull up some pictures. 'cause
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That'd
it's
be
really
fun.
Yeah.
colorful.
I need
It was
to see
interesting.
Talking of foreign countries,
Yes.
moving on. Talking of foreign countries, I want to point out the British are having a big hoo-ha with the Russians, who've seen fit to cause trouble on our shores, not just for some Russians, but for our police officers and a whole load of civilians. And so I'd like to throw it across to Evo.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Is it
Whether assassinating spies on foreign soil is acceptable, is it fair game? If they're considered enemy of your state.
Well, leaving for Professor Jane and myself, that was a Dutchman, I think.
We could hear it from far away.
Leaving aside the Dutch and the French, is it acceptable?
Well, it's been happening since the beginning of time. Spies or dissidents, people that have escaped the regime of your country and are daring to criticize this regime, have been murdered for millennia. I don't know if Jesus Christ could be considered one of those, but for example, Trotsky was murdered in Mexico, in the outskirts of Mexico City by Stalin. Even back then in 1940, it was 1940, the ocean was not big enough to help him escape, and he was murdered with an ice pick. He was barbaric. Yes, Lou, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, when I first saw your question, I thought, and just different from what you were just describing, that you were asking if it was okay, for instance, for us to go and murder some French spy.
Or we have a spy right now in Russia that we kind of want him gone.
Right.
And a lot of people consider him to be a treasonous asshole and hate his guts. Other people believe he's a hero.
Does it depend then on whether he is continuing to provide more information or whether he's all done and he's just escaped? There's a difference.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Kath, because he could be endangering the lives of thousands of people right now by
if it's an
providing
ongoing threat,
more.
that's a little different situation.
That's different
than somebody who has betrayed his country and managed to escape to the person he.
And you're looking for revenge, just like Putin pretty much did with Sergei Skripal.
That's what Putin was doing.
Yulia.
He was looking for revenge and to have a blow against other countries to help him with his so-called elections.
Okay, because I'm a firm believer in democracy, I'm going to say that I am very much against this, and I think it's highly illegal and should be prosecuted in international criminal courts, because you are murdering people with no trial. You're basically sending an assassin on foreign soil, and in this case, endangering the lives of British citizens and people that are completely innocent. They dispensed. I'm sure you've read today. There was new information about the Novichok, the poison that they used. It's 5 or 6 times more powerful than the VX gases.
But currently, Putin's view is tough shit.
He doesn't care.
If you are a traitor to Russia, then you've got to expect everything that we can deal with. And he has made that quite clear. I think 2 days ago.
Putin's an uncivilized lout. Everybody knows that.
That may be the point, but that may be true.
No.
But if you're the prime minister or president of a country, a small country, Finland, Sweden, France, Germany, Holland, Britain, Spain, Italy, and it happens, actually, what can you do about it? Because the concern has been that Theresa May, Prime Minister Theresa May, has a very small arsenal in her handbag that she can do to the Russians. Expel some diplomats. So what? They'll expel a similar amount of diplomats. The British football team, soccer team, are not going. All that's going to do is annoy a huge number of Brits.
She can complain about Putin to the International Criminal Court and get him, make it very difficult for him to visit other countries.
Well, that might not necessarily do as much as you think, because of something I saw today, that the Philippines is retracting its membership from the International Criminal Court, which is supposedly going to excuse it from most punishments from there.
Yeah, but that's going to cause huge isolation, international isolation for the Philippines. There's going to be sanctions. It's really kind of a harakiri. I mean, it's a diplomatic suicide.
A head of a government that has withdrawn from that, who is accused of criminal charges, has lost their immunity, diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, he can't travel anywhere. It's a complete disaster.
So I have a couple of hypothetical questions I just want to throw out. So, does it make a difference if you find a foreign spy on your soil? Are you then allowed to kill?
We killed Ethel and Julian Rosenthal in what was it?
Rosenthal or Rosenberg?
Late 40s,
40s.
early 50s. Yeah.
It was we killed them, but there was a very public trial,
Right.
and we sent them to the electric chair in New York. That was the first American citizen that was executed for espionage.
Yeah, but that was a
Those
trial
two.
and
and that was
an execution. This is not like sending an assassin.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's ultimately the question. Like, is assassination ever okay in the spy world? Like, James Bond got to kill everybody all the time. Is that just too far removed from reality? Is that something that we don't want to do at all?
No, it's a necessary evil.
That's ultimately the question.
If they are in danger of harming a whole lot of people, then maybe yes. But
And-
not just as
I don't
retribution.
think you would see President Putin arriving at, say, JFK or Newark, for example, on a large Russian jet. He is then put into his entourage to take him across to the UN. And on the way, let's say on a bridge, a whole bunch of American police cars suddenly block the road and attempt to arrest Putin. That, leaving aside that there would be a bloodbath because Putin's team would protect their president to the last man standing. So you've now got Putin in a jail in Newark, right, or New York or something. What are you going to do with him? That show that used to be on West Wing was very illuminating if you want to know what it's really like. Because as they would say, it's all about an appropriate response. The reality is that there isn't really very much you can do.
Yeah, there are things that you can do to hurt the Russians. Now, I'll mention a few of those in a little bit, but I wanted to tell you that I think what's the most sinister thing about Putin's tactics here is that it's not revenge. He's not dispensing justice. These guys is very, very well calculated prophylactics. This is prevention hygiene. What he's doing is he's sending a message to anyone that will dare to say a word against him. He's sending this message. He says, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the most peaceful
Pure power
neighborhood
play.
in England.
Yeah.
We will find you and you will die a violent death. Alexander Litvinenko, you remember about 8 years ago, he was assassinated with polonium. You know how he did it? They had a guy in prison for corruption. They released the guy from prison. Putin released him from prison mysteriously. And that guy travels to England, puts polonium in Litvinenko's tea and goes back to Russia, and now he's free and rich in Russia. Litvinenko, it took 3 weeks for him to die. His internal organs liquefied slowly, and he named Putin. He said,
Sure.
Putin was the one that killed me.
Putin has admitted this in this instant. He said, well, it looks like the UK is not a safe place for you to go. Sort of thing. It's just...
It's disgusting. He's a caricature villain, former KGB guy. We all know what he said. That he believes that the biggest tragedy of the 20th century is the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Never mind World War I, World War II, the 30 million Russians killed by Stalin. It was the fucking artificial country called Soviet Union that was the biggest tragedy. Bullshit.
You know what's really pissed the Brits off about the latest episode? Two things. One is that one of their much beloved police officers has been very badly injured. He is talking, but his boss said he's not the man I knew. And it's like kicking the Queen's corgis. You don't do it, right? It's just something you don't do. And
Kick her corgis all the time.
and that is something that's really pissed the Brits off. The other thing is that was where it was done. It wasn't done on the streets of London.
Yeah.
Or some big city.
Small.
It was done in a lovely town called Salisbury. Not a city. Well, it is a city actually, but it's small, very old,
picturesque,
Roman,
Extremely picturesque
yeah,
town.
with lots of Elizabethan buildings and Tudor buildings and that sort of thing. And it's not something. The Brits are saying, excuse us, we just don't do this sort of thing. Yeah. And there has been a fear, a genuine fear, that if Mrs. Prime Minister goes too far, that Putin could turn around and go, fuck you, I'm going to go and park an aircraft carrier up the Thames, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, you know,
leaving aside their aircraft carriers don't have difficulty making it to England, but that's another story. Ivo.
Well, you know, the ruling class right now in Russia are the so-called oligarchs, and it's a very, very thin social layer comprised of about 50 extremely rich people, some of the richest people in the world, including Putin. Many think that Putin is the richest person in the world. Nobody knows exactly where his accounts are, in what Swiss banks or not. But those people, they enjoy, as oligarchs, certain creature comforts. Being very rich in Russia itself is not enough. You can have all kinds of stuff, but you're still in fucking Russia. You can drive your Ferrari on the broken down streets of Moscow, you know, but what they really enjoy is frolic on their yachts in Monte Carlo and Monaco. They love purchasing giant British soccer clubs and buying big houses in London. If you take this away from them, take Roman Abramovich's ownership of the Chelsea football team away, take their status, that is going to drive them crazy. That's not very effective, but some way you can hurt them.
So does that mean killing them while they're on the Monte Carlo should be allowed?
Killing the oligarchs?
Yeah.
Yeah, back to assassination.
Oh, like we would assassinate them?
Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, we don't know if they're responsible personally for the death of anybody.
I think, Dr. Orlando, one of the issues here is that one has very little concept of how wealthy these people are.
Oh God!
And so we talk in America as Walmart wealthy. Right, they are not wealthy compared to these
people. Yeah.
You know, and so one might say, well, I tell you what, let's mine one of their yachts. Abramovich's yacht, we'll sink it. Right, his yacht is so big it can't get into the Monte Carlo harbours. They're not allowed. They can't moor it up alongside.
I wasn't talking about you or me trying to assassinate one of these people. The question was like government-sanctioned killings, like
bombed.
Yeah.
So you're saying we can retaliate and start taking them out?
I am not saying that. I'm asking, is that a reasonable response?
So if you're trying to make everybody in the world feeling unsafe because of how they feel about you and what, like for example, we are now talking about Putin and Russia and espionage and murders. So are we supposed to feel unsafe? Who knows? If he hears that, he might say, "Hey, it's nothing to me. I'll send somebody put some polonium in the Conroy's beer, which already is there."
Yeah.
You know.
No, we've got to be better than that. Western society as a whole has to be better than that, or the whole world just is chaos.
I'll tell you one quick story. It was 1978 in London. There's a bridge, Waterloo Bridge, and there's a bus stop on the bridge. And there was a wonderful author from Bulgaria who eloped, ran away from the country, and he was bad-mouthing KGB and the system, the communism. He was an excellent author. His name was Georgy Markov. He was very, very famous. And the Bulgarian KGB, along with the Russian KGB, they sent an Italian assassin who went on that bridge as Georgy Markov was waiting for the bus, and poked him on the shoulder with an umbrella. There was a trigger in the umbrella that shot a capsule filled with ricin. And Georgy Markov died on the next day, I believe, or a couple of days later. There was nothing they could do to save him, but that was known as the Bulgarian umbrella from then on. And I was in Washington, D.C. last year, and I went to a wonderful little museum in downtown Washington, D.C. called the Spy Museum. Great place, highly recommend it. Fascinating. And they had the Bulgarian version of the Bulgarian umbrella,
Right.
exact copy of it.
Was it
there.
from Bulgaria or was it ours?
Yeah, I think it was from Bulgaria that they somehow had a copy of the actual umbrella. So.
We have more than 5 senses. More than 5 senses. I think probably 6 or 7, and we'll be talking about that next.
Ha! You are wrong, sir.
We'll be talking about that next here on Wednesday Night Undressed. But first, Eva, I want to go back to something you were talking to me about the other day. Tariffs.
Oh yeah.
You know, if we were in a position to, right?
Because we were dealing recently with a very bizarre economic mechanism that was employed by President Trump. He decided to boost the United States production of steel and aluminum by imposing tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum, 25% and 15% respectively. So I believe that we have gone past that point in time where we could play isolationist games. Everything's so globalized. There's a global economy, and everything is connected for the thinking man. If you just have a little bit of brain, you have a couple of brain cells to rub together, you realize that there's a butterfly effect economically, that whatever happens in China is going to affect here. Prices, quality of life, standard of living, all that stuff. So I don't believe in these tariffs. I think, though, that there are certain things that could probably be what is the word? Taxed. So I was wondering if you guys have anything in mind that if you were the president for a day, you would want to put a tariff on. I will give you an example. And the most obvious example is I would put immediate 1,000% tariff on cricket. Everything that has to do with cricket, I would immediately tax 1,000%. Fucking cricket. I would rather watch. Let's see. I would rather be behind a two-way mirror.
Speaking of Stormy Daniels,
He doesn't like
he doesn't like that. Yes. You would rather behind a
two-way mirror, I would be and watch 14 hours of Janet Reno flossing instead of watching 10 minutes
genital flossing.
of cricket.
Janet Reno.
Genital flossing.
God, it's
That is a
Reno.
completely different show.
That's a
So
different
tell
show.
me, Dr. Orlando, why would you impose a tariff on someone or something? What would that tariff be?
So for me, it would based on largely on Evo's introduction, I would actually want to tariff something that I have a problem with that is internal to the country. So for me, the thing that comes immediately to mind is bullets.
Yes.
I'd love to put a tariff on bullets.
Except we probably manufacture most of that.
That's why. When you're talking about butterfly effect and the effect that it'll have on other countries, we should in theory be able to raise taxes on bullets and pay for anything that we want, to infrastructure, medical issues, kind of whatever we want.
I like it. Raising the price on bullet. How about this, you guys? Have you thought of maybe imposing tariffs on marijuana? Of course, that implies that we should legalize it first, right? And then I feel like, first of all, there's probably we import more marijuana than anything else in this country, and cocaine,
I don't know about
We make a
marijuana.
lot of it at home.
Yeah, but the government makes zero money off of it.
So you treat it like tobacco.
Yeah.
It might work.
It might work.
Might work.
There's
Anyone?
no doubt that in the UK, when I was involved in politics, the party that I worked with believed very much in hypothecation or ring fencing. At bringing in, say, tax on cigarettes, the idea was to ring fence that tax and use it towards dentistry, so that dentistry is provided free at the point of delivery to anybody who wanted it. Note the word want. So that, if you wanted to have private dentistry, so be it. But ring fencing certain items, and so when you look at the marijuana thing, it's not been illegal for that long in the great scheme of things. And it would seem to me that would be something that would be worth putting a tariff on.
Yeah.
Kathleen.
I have an
like it.
idea for a tariff.
Shoot.
Japanese cartoon characters.
Hell no.
No.
You
Yes.
just lost
Tariff
my
the
vote.
hell out of those suckers.
No.
Big eyes and so stupid looking. Jeez, no. They're
They are
horrible.
kind of scary
Damn,
looking.
Kath.
Poco
Yeah.
Mum.
Any of the ridiculous products that motherfucker Dyson manufactures in fucking cyclonic suction technology. $300.
They already.
Tyson.
A bladeless fan.
They already-
$200.
Jane, have you given this any consideration?
Motherfucker.
A bit. At first, I was like, I don't know, but I think that if I were to slap a tariff, or at least a heavy tax on, would be beef imports for our chains. Maybe even, I would stick with beef especially, but
And specifically
Subway,
imports?
McDonald's, Chipotle, they pretty much buy out of
Really?
country.
Ooh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
And part of the controversy, especially behind like McDonald's, they say that they don't have enough beef in America to supply all their chains, et cetera, et cetera.
Really?
And I've read controversial reports on this, and I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit from what I've read. So I just think they're getting a better deal. I'm not exactly.
Just specifically imports. Would you tax the internal beef? I'm just curious. This is not a judgment call. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about that.
Gotcha.
I was just like, I've just read a bit about it. I'm not well versed on it. yeah. So
Tariffs
that's
and
what I do.
taxes are funny things. So on the yacht, one has to be aware of where one registers it. Most people register their yachts in the Bahamas or in Boston or somewhere like that.
Really?
Now, if one registers a yacht that is more than 100 feet long, right?
We had that trouble, didn't we?
We did
Less than 100 feet long.
in Kansas, so thus in Topeka, right? They have a maximum length that you can register. And I think it's 40 feet or something like that. And after that, it's 40 feet. So it doesn't matter if you have one the size of ours. The
2 foot.
120 feet, it doesn't matter as long as you have it registered in Kansas. And incidentally, ours is the only yacht registered in Kansas.
You know what? I just realized the question was not taxing; it was tariffs, and I gave a tax, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so I'm going to go back.
So we followed you, of course.
I'm going to go back then,
Doctor.
and I'm going to say that I'm going to tax Corona
Corona?
or tariff Corona. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of foreign beer
Corona beer?
but I think they kind of make
No,
it
Kath.
here. I think
Corona.
they
Scheiße.
bottle
They
it
do.
here.
Sorry, yes.
I have an interesting question. There's been a lot of complaint lately by players in the National Basketball Association that like players, college players,
Foreign players.
there's an avalanche of foreign players, and there's no tariffs on that product.
No, a tariff on height per inch.
There you go.
Per inch of basketball
Oh my God,
player.
Luis has to pay a lot.
That's what she said. Okay.
Well,
we
so
did that
there
one.
we go. Yes. Now,
go for it,
I
Brennan.
never got to talk on this.
Oh.
well, you weren't
Even though
invited.
Are you
even
here?
though
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Even though mine is probably not in the spirit of the question, because I'm a product of a university business school. I think tariffs are the most. I think they're the most limiting things an economy can have to help prevent growth, because you're directly saying for an industry, we can't do it, so we're not letting other people who can do it better show us how to do it better, and maybe put us through a little bit of pain, but we can eventually get there. You're directly saying to the world, we're not better, so we're going to give everyone on our home soil an unfair advantage.
Does that
So
apply
it's
to basketball players?
Well,
The NBA is meant for the
anything.
best basketball players in the world. If you
Yeah.
can't play there, go play in France. Go play in Spain.
Yeah.
Why did you target France first?
Because France is
Have you met a French person?
middling on
I'm kidding.
European
Me too.
basketball.
One of the troubles with the French, particularly their
Oh, God, here we
wash
go.
under their arms.
Jeremy!
So when they're putting their hair up on their heads, you notice their arms
In the
don't
man
move.
buns?
Yeah, have you noticed that?
I
they're-
have not noticed.
No,
Yes.
and I'm not talking about top
I would
quarter acre
rather,
either.
I would rather
Now-
watch 7 hours of bacteria multiplying without a microscope than watch 10 minutes of cricket.
Perhaps that's why, Dr. Orlando, we have more than 5 senses.
So this is like one of the coolest things I ever remember finding out about when I was like 2 days ago. So I found a list that has 12 extra senses besides our 5 main senses, and that gives me the question, since we went, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, over which one of your main senses would you
Are
give
these
up?
super senses like super hearing and
In my
superpowers?
case, yes. But the list that I have is the extra senses that we all have.
Oh.
So I'm going to run through the list really quickly, just so that people on the
Oh, good.
podcast know what we're talking about.
All right.
It lists pressure, itch, temperature, pain, thirst, hunger, direction, time, muscle tension, proprioception, which is the ability to tell where your body parts are relative to other body parts, equilibrioception, the ability to keep your balance and sense body movement in terms of acceleration and directional changes.
That's a popular one.
Stretch receptors.
Stretch receptor.
Yeah, things in your lungs, your bladder, your stomach.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And chemoreceptors, which are hormones and also involved in vomiting. So the folks at the table here actually have the list in front of them. So I'm going to ask you guys if there is a sense on this list that you think you could get away with giving up. Kath?
On that list, itch.
You think you could go without it?
I hate it when things itch, and it doesn't do any good to scratch them anyway.
Hell yes, I agree.
That's a good one.
I would, well, and I'm wondering if that's maybe not just a leftover sense from like when we were, covered in much thicker fur and maybe had to worry about.
And had to find the fleas.
Yeah. I wonder if itch is kind of outmoded now.
For me, of course, it would be proprioception. I do get frustrated with things rubbing up against other things, and would love that.
That's
You
the
know,
ability
that
to tell
might
where your
be my
body parts
favorite thing.
are.
Just
Oh,
get
Lord.
being in
That was a
control.
thing.
Well, yeah. Well, I want to say that every time before I come to Conroy's, I want to part with my sense of taste.
Believe me, you parted with your sense of taste a long time.
Everybody here at this table probably doesn't have that sense.
Yeah.
Hey,
Professor
I love the
Carter.
steak fries.
I would say hunger.
Really? Mm-hmm. So would you give that up?
Itch.
in
It was a debate because I'm with Kath on this. I really hate to be itchy, and even though I think I've come to figure out that I am allergic to chiggers. They're bad. When I get them, they are bad. Mosquitoes, no problem, but chiggers, they're just horrible, and it is misery in all.
I
so
can
I would say
help you there. Chiggers love anything English.
Yes.
Right, it's a fact of life. And
Did you want to
your
be close
various,
to-
I was
your
gonna say, you
various,
just wanna go
your
walk with
vari-
me in the
your
grass.
various travels to England have made you allergic.
Oh.
You've been in England
People
too much.
don't know that, but it is true. It's
Okay,
true.
he's
that,
he's full of it. You know that, right?
that you're
I was
allergic.
wondering if he just wanted you to like rub Old English on your leg. So
No, he died. He was a lovely dog.
oh,
So what? So I'm curious with the hunger. Like,
Yeah.
does that mean that you don't foresee being like running out of food and not thinking to eat as a problem, or is that just not a consideration? Do you have such a static routine that wouldn't be an issue for you?
Yeah, exactly. I
Gotcha.
don't think it would be an issue anyway.
Yeah.
But there is always at least 1 week.
Uh-huh.
1 week where I feel like I have to hoard food in my body and just and it's just annoying. And I even think to myself, I'm not even hungry. I know that really doesn't really have anything to do with it, but I would like to never feel hungry.
But you still enjoy food.
Yeah.
It's highly,
Yes,
it's highly
yeah.
If you don't, I'm
unlikely
just
that
asking.
you would forget to eat long enough to do yourself any harm in our
You
society.
could just set alarms.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a difference between taste and sense of flavor.
Uh-huh.
There's flavor, sense of flavor is a combination of the smell, the receptors in your nose and your taste buds, and that creates the same. That's what the great connoisseurs of wine and
Yes.
sommeliers
Oh,
have.
absolutely. It's
Well,
the same
hold
way
on,
in food.
I gotta before I forget this seriously,
Yeah.
because Kath just brought up the whole. What if you forgot? But we're talking about right now, right within the next 24 hours. If you
Yeah.
could choose something to lose, okay. Well, it's pretty much already habitual. You would already be well. It's dinner time. I better eat something. You know what? Don't you think so? I mean, I think
Probably for a long time you would still have the habit, but you might drop it after a while. Or you might just eat more than you need, because if you lose
Yeah.
the feeling of
become,
being
like,
hungry, then you might lose the
old
feeling
and
of being
senile
full.
and totally forget.
I can tell you that actually a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, he had a
Lies already.
horse. And, no, he had a horse. His name's Jethro.
No, he meant that you
and
had
he had a
friends.
horse, and he thought it would be a good thing if he taught this horse not to eat, because it was a real pain feeding him, having to get up in the morning, go out, feed the bloody thing. Do you know, he taught that horse not to eat. And the bastard thing died.
And you had to start
Oddly
over
enough.
again. Yeah.
No, I can believe it. So I'm just curious. Nobody here
hateful.
volunteered to give up the sense of time. That's actually kind
No.
of surprising to me. Do we
Yeah.
all feel like that's pretty important, that you
Yes.
actually need to have the sensation of the passage of time?
Yeah.
But 2,000 years ago, we wouldn't have needed it, would we? We wouldn't have known
We
about
have
time.
actually we have a something in us in the brain that controls the circadian rhythms. We have receptors for time.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, even though it's not a well-determined sense, that is an interesting
I
concept.
can't imagine being without a sense of time. It's hard to think what it would actually be like.
It would
actually,
be like being Evo.
Well, yes, that's a good point. But actually, a lot of people that take psychotropics, psilocybin, they experience time differently. And a lot of people report things literally slowing down and having a very frightening,
I think it would
sometimes
be
frightening
scary.
perception.
You wouldn't
yeah.
know what was going on. You'd think we were going crazy.
There was a guy, a famous phone call. You're probably familiar with a cop, actually, who was off duty and took too much edibles, and with his wife.
Oh, right.
And they called 911. He called 911, and they said, "What's going on?" And he said on the phone, and it's all over the internet. This phone call says, "I don't know, but time is going really, 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 really slow."
I think we're going to die because time.
I'd like to ask one question, just following on from that, Dr. Orlando, and that is that I often have this thought that maybe we have other senses that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
The research hasn't, or in 1,000 years, people say, they didn't know that they could. Telepathy being the obvious one.
A lot of people.
Just going round the table, starting, if I can, with Brennan. What about a sense that we don't have?
That would you like to have?
What do you think that you would like to have? Sixth sense, seventh sense.
I would say maybe the sense of there being something you can tell in someone, that because people can hide dishonesty very well, more intelligible sense of whether someone is being honest or dishonest.
So
You're
lies.
thinking like The Sims, like when they're being dishonest, the little
Yes.
gem above their head turns
Yeah.
That's
red.
cool.
Yeah.
So lies. What about Dame Kathleen?
Well, some people seem to believe they can see an aura around people that might tell either their mood or whether they're going to die soon or something. That'd be kind of cool.
Evo, what would a sense be for you? An extra sense, the seventh sense.
The seventh sense,
Yeah,
not the
because
sixth
obviously,
sense.
well, you already have the sixth sense.
Yeah.
We operate a sixth sense
Yeah.
when we're doing radio together, I think. So a seventh sense, something.
Yeah, I kind of experienced something like this. So I went into the isolation tank recently, and I realized that when your sensory receptors are completely depressed and you receive no stimuli, so you're in complete darkness, there's no sound, there's no cross ventilation, there's no wind, and even the tactile experience is removed because you're floating in water that's the temperature of your body. And the water is loaded with Epsom salt, so you don't sink. And after about 10-15 minutes, you start just feeling like you're suspended in space and there's nothing around you. It's just an empty space. And it sounds scary, when I say it, but actually, I realized that all five senses are depressed. You somehow sharpen another sense, and it emerged. And I can't name it. It's this ability of thoughts, concepts to emerge from somewhere. Sometimes it feels like they're coming from outside of you.
Creativity.
So a different type of consciousness.
Awareness.
Yeah,
is
everything seems connected. And I came out of there after an hour or so, hour and a half, and I wanted to rush home and write quickly because I had so many concepts and ideas that I wanted to write down before I forget them. So I felt like there's this sense that is triggered by isolation and the ability to be alone for a little bit, not for long, because being isolated for a long time is the worst punishment known to human being. But for a little bit, it sharpens this bizarre new sense that I didn't know I had.
Professor Carter.
I would say like an over-enhanced spidey sense. Now, you can be taught this, you can teach yourself this, but I think you should be born with it, and it should be to a heightened degree to where you always know what's behind you, what's in front of you. You sense it so much so that you can avoid danger, etc., etc. That's what I would say.
Dr. Orlando.
Two. I got one that we actually already all have, and then the one that I want.
If it's gaydar, I have the worst gaydar. For example, I never knew Brennan. Never knew it. My gaydar was
Well, this
horrible.
is one we haven't got. This is
surprise.
one we haven't got that you'd like.
Well, the one that we have that I would like to have proof of is the ability to know somebody's looking at you. Have you ever been in like an amphitheater and look
Yes.
across the goddamn field, and out of 10,000 people, there's one person that's
person
looking at you,
is looking
and
at you.
connect eyes.
Yep.
That is a sense, and I don't know how it works, but it works. So that's the one that I would like to
Some enchanted evening.
figure out and define so that we can list that on our list here. The one that I would like is my current favorite sci-fi extra sense is where I am able to read radio waves. So I could literally pull things out of the internet just as I'm sitting here looking at the radio waves that are bouncing around in the room.
That's good. That reminds me of a sense that we might have and other animals have, like bats. Because they can receive sound waves that are bouncing, interpret them. They have sensors for it, interpret them, and they have sonars, basically.
But selective, right?
yeah.
I mean, not
selective.
overloaded.
I could watch
okay.
NBC if I wanted to,
Yeah.
or I could.
And you
listen
can
to-
tune it out. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
And sharks, sharks actually have a bizarre receptor for electricity. And they can
Magnetic.
feel no disturbances in electricity. That's how they get attracted to wrecks. And what other animal senses? The snakes have incredible smell receptors
and the heat receptors, like the two.
Night
the two
vision
together.
would be awesome. I would love to, like cats. I would love to be able to see at night.
I like it. How about you, Mister?
Well, night vision is a good one. I think telepathy is an awareness, but also I think that one of the things that people didn't do is like sort of magical type of awarenesses is trying to move things.
Oh, telekinesis.
Having said that,
Conroy!
Turn the TV volume off.
good Lord, Conroy,
Wicked tuna of all things.
you see, and wouldn't it be cool to be able to just look at the TV and it turns down? So on our very,
I have an aunt who could do that. She could turn anything off by looking at it.
yeah, on our. I think this is quite interesting as we
You
look
know, Donald Trump can turn any woman off by looking at her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look at this. The ability to tell if someone's lying, aura, awareness, spidey senses, ability to know one's being looked at, reading radio waves, and night vision. Isn't that all? If you knock it all down and you do a flow chart and keep going and keep going and keep going, isn't that going to bring you back to awareness? To a really heightened
Awareness. All of
ability
them are
to
awareness.
control your awareness.
I think so.
It's an interesting.
So like
it's an
Mr.
interesting-
Universe on Watchmen.
Well,
Yeah.
senses are all a matter of awareness of some sort or other.
Magnetics receptors, like the Canadian geese. Yeah, so you always know where north, south, west, and east. We probably have that deep down inside somewhere.
Have you ever saw the statistic that says men have a larger deposit of iron in their nose, and that's why we are stereotypically considered to have better
You should
sense of
quit
direction?
Oh,
sticking nails up
really?
your nose
I
when you're
didn't know.
My
kids.
husband doesn't.
So going to
Like, bless his
Evo. Evo, been a difficult one for sponsors tonight, I know, but I just wondered what you thought.
This podcast
You give it a share.
has been sponsored today by the very generous Downtown Topeka. Come to Downtown Topeka, enjoy the voluptuous
History, friends, and family
the
fun.
voluptuous architecture. Oh wait, no. Enjoy the incredible bouquet of amazing restaurants. No, wait, no. Enjoy the bustling, fun nightlife. Wait, no.
The Celtic Fox.
You know what?
The welcoming
You know
neighborhoods?
what?
No.
They're supplying us.
The cricket team,
Yeah, the cricket. Enjoy the no.
Topeka Cricket.
No, Downtown Topeka is sponsoring us today with post-apocalyptic landscapes and a sense of existential dread.
We'd like to thank our engineer, our chief engineer tonight, Eric Holcomb.
Also, the $3 million barcade that's about to open in 2 days.
Wait,
It will be gone before you know. It will be gone before you know.
We'd like to thank our engineer, Eric Holcomb, and of course our producer, Neil Rasmussen. You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed. The team tonight, Dame Kathleen Taylor, Count Ivo Ivanov, Dr.
Yes.
Orlando, Professor Jane Carter, and guesting with us tonight, Brennan Conroy.